Hi, I'm Louise Spencer. I'm the co-founder of Kent Street Coalition, and this is the third in our four-part series on visibility tutorials. So welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the logistics of planning visibility. Don't get intimidated about it. You'll learn as you go. Don't let any of this stop you from going forward and putting on an event. The important thing is to get out there and to be visible in your communities, because that's how we're going to reach people and to get them thinking about the issues that we care about. So our first tutorial was primarily focused on signs. Our second was how to get our message out in other ways. And today is our third, looking at some of the preparation that goes into preparing for visibilities, logistics, and the Newport example. It's important to ask ourselves why we do visibilities. One, they're a great organizing tool, a terrific way to build capacity and to build a sense of community. That helps us build coalitions and ultimately to build political power. We also get out there so that we can support our champions, our legislative champions in particular. It's extraordinarily hard work, even in the best of times, to go in day after day on behalf of their constituents. It's particularly hard during the current political climate. It's also how we hold bad actors accountable. There's so much happening, and we need to let the public know, let our neighbors, let the community know what exactly is going on under the dome at the State House. This is especially important in red towns where legislators are not going to bring that news back to their constituents. So we need to be the ones out there educating our neighbors. This makes a tremendous impact on our local communities. And finally, it's a great way to amplify our message by getting the attention of media. So there's some key logistical considerations as we start our planning for visibility. And it is important to do this advanced planning. You want to think about things like location. This includes thinking about accessibility. Is there wheelchair access? Is it a place that everyone who wants to participate will be able to participate? Want to give consideration to the time and the date and how you're going to promote the event. Finally, you do want to think about, are you going to ask the media to be there to cover and to try to do this as an earned media event? So a good visibility benefits from advanced planning. First and foremost, you want to determine the goals. Are you trying to get a message across that your community doesn't know? Are you trying to move people to action? Are you trying to build capacity? Think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this particular visibility action. It may be several goals. It may be one primary goal, but it does require some careful consideration ahead of time. And this is closely related to the message that you want to convey. Simple is usually best, particularly if you're out where people are going by fairly quickly. They can't take in a lot of information all at once. So if you have a message that is clear and concise, it's going to have a lot more impact than if you have lots of multiple messages or detail about one message. Think about then, once you've thought about your goals and your message, what type of action might best serve those so that you can have the biggest impact. Sometimes it's as simple as holding signs. Other times you might want to be doing something more theatrical. You may want just a few people. You might want a lot of people. Again, whatever you, it should be serving your message and your goals. Ask, are there other groups that might be wanting to participate in this event whose goals are aligned with yours? That's a good time to reach out to find co-sponsors. The beauty of that is that it helps us to build coalition. That's one of the things we're trying to do in general, is to connect our work across the state so that it has more impact. As you're putting your event together, particularly as you bring in sponsors or more people, make sure they're all on the same, have the same understanding of what this event is about and how it's going to be conducted. You know, we always have as a foundation of our actions that it will be a nonviolent event. That's just a non-starter. It has to be a nonviolent event. And then sharing the mic. This is something we need to give more and more consideration to as we move forward with our political work. Who are the people most impacted by the issues that we're talking about? Those are the people who should be centered in the action and should be given the mic to share their lived experience. It's powerful. It's also the way that we want to be moving forward so that we are using these platforms to amplify those voices. So location is a key consideration when you're planning your visibility. You want to think about high visibility locations, intersections, events that might be happening in your town. This can mean, you know, are you catching rush hour traffic? Those sorts of things that will help you get as many eyes on your event as possible. That's how we can amplify the messaging. You also might want to think about symbolism. If you're talking about education, do you do the event in front of the local school? If it's tax day, do you do it in front of a federal building? So the symbolism of the spot itself can add a lot to the message. Then you want to think about, do you have enough space for the number of people that you hope will participate? So if you're just planning a 3, 4, 5 person action, then it can be in a smaller location. Obviously, if you're hoping for hundreds of people to come, you need to make sure you have the capacity for that. And then safety is a key consideration as well. And we'll go more into detail about safety a little bit later in this presentation. And permits is an interesting question, and one really that is probably best for you to talk with your local town or city officials about. In general, you can be on sidewalks, be moving on sidewalks. The smaller the event, the less likely you are to need a permit, the fewer installations that you have, or such as a stage or you know, something that is going to, you know, if you need porta potties or that sort of thing, the more involved it gets, the more likely it is that you'll need a permit. Date and time is another key consideration. Again, think about the symbolism. Is there a date that will help amplify your message? If you're talking about higher property taxes, do you want to do it on the day that those taxes are due? Do you want to do it near the city hall where people are coming to pay their taxes? you want to think about when your particular activists are most likely to be available. That depends on the demographic. Do you work mostly with retired people, or are they working parents or parents who are available after school? You want to make sure you're planning at a time where the most people are able to participate. It's also good to do a conflict check. Fortunately, there are a lot of other groups out there trying to do important work getting the message across as well. It's best to not compete in those efforts. So make sure that when you are planning something that you know that your town committee next town over is not planning something at the same time. Then there's the issue of whether it should be during the daytime or the nighttime. Sometimes, again, that can have a symbolic purpose. It impacts whether people, who's able to participate. You can do some different types of signage, whether it be in the daytime or nighttime. The day you can, hold signs that everyone can read. At nighttime, you need to think about illumination. You need to think about how you're going to get your message so people can see it through the dark. And then ask yourself whether this is going to be a regularly occurring event. With Kent Street, we hold a Friday visibility every week from 4 to 5 on Main and Loudon roads in Concord. People know it's going to happen. They show up if they can. We catch end of the week traffic. It can be very effective to have an event that occurs so that people know, our volunteers know, oh yeah, it's Friday, I can just show up. Now let's say a few words about safety. It's very important. We do have a responsibility when we put out a call for an action that we give consideration and prior thought to safety concerns. Again, location. Is this someplace, if it's highly trafficked, are there safe spaces for people, sidewalks, green spaces next to the road, places where people can step away and really not be at risk of being hit by a car. Thinking about the time of day, if we're doing something at nighttime, do we have torches? Do we have lights? Do we have vests? Do we have things that are going to, again, make sure that our participants are visible and safe? Sometimes there's concerns about or risk of counter protesters. When we think about that, it's often if we think that might happen, it is really helpful to put together a team of peacekeepers, people that are there to help, who have training in de-escalating. They wear the yellow vests. They keep an eye out to make sure that the people at the event can focus on the event, that the message being put forth at the event is the message that carries the day, rather than some kind of scuffle or skirmish that might detract from what the overall message that we're trying to communicate. It's also something to think about is, do you do a courtesy call to the police? This is so that they know this event is happening and they won't be taken by surprise. It's a way actually to diminish police involvement rather than we find, than to increase it. And again, it's as you invite people to participate, both your sponsors and your participants, it's important to have shared understandings, such as this is a nonviolent event. People are going to not engage in aggressive behaviors. People will work with the peacekeepers, those sorts of shared understandings are important. So often we'd like to have a lot of people attend these events, and that requires prior promotion. How are we going to get the word out to our members, to our communities, letting them know that an event is happening, what the messaging is, and what we're asking them to do? We can do this a variety of ways through email, social media, creating graphics on Canva. It's good to reach out to our networks to share the word as widely as possible. And of course, if you do have co-sponsors, the expectation should be that each group sponsoring the event will do what they can to reach out to their own membership. Then there's promotion of the event while it's happening. Are you going to do a Facebook Live and encourage people to participate remotely? This helps, you know, if you have video of the event, you can use that then after the fact. You can share it out and use it with Twitter and other social media. A saying among activists is, if you don't have pictures, the event never happened. You want the pictures, you want those so that you can get them out on social media, but also get them out to your own membership, because people really enjoy seeing these pictures and it reminds them that they were part of something special. I know that we put ours up on Facebook, and it's also a way of building community. A big question is whether and how you're going to engage with the media. Depending on the size of the event, you might want to consider putting out a press release. If you are doing a fairly small event in your town and you know the reporter for the local paper, you know, you can reach out directly to that individual. Sometimes the press becomes aware of the event and just shows up. So it's always good to be prepared for the press to be there, to be clear what your message is, to be concise and being able to convey that to the media, and to have a point person designated who will talk with a reporter should they show up, and make sure that you're getting your message clearly across. The day of, you want to make sure that you have your bases covered, because last minute things can come up. So it's always good to have extra markers, duct tape, water, a first aid kit. Be prepared should be the motto. You may be having a lot of new people show up, and you want to be able to continue to reach out to them after the event. This is a recruiting tool. So have a clipboard and a sign-in sheet. You might also want to have a table with information about your organization or the other organizations that are co-sponsoring, with so that people know what your broader mission is. Consider having printed flyers that you can send home with people with more details about the issues that you're trying to raise attention about. Make sure that you have your sound equipment. If you're using it, make sure it's charged, that you've got the proper batteries, and that you've got someone who can run the system. Try to have plenty of signs. Encourage people to bring their own for sure, but make sure that you also have some available so that people feel they can just show up. And if this is a nighttime vigil type of event, again, you can ask people to bring their own candles and votives, but it's always nice to have those things available. One of the important parts of the visibility is that we want to make the barrier to participation as low as possible. We want people to find out about the event and think, oh, that's something I want to do. Can I just show up to do it? And not have them think, oh, but I'll have to make a sign and I've got to find a candle and I don't really know what's needed and expected of me. So whenever you're doing a visibility, in fact, whenever you're doing a request for any action, if you can minimize the barriers to participation, that's always going to help, not only with that particular action, but people will feel more comfortable over time joining you in further actions. And now we're going to put very into practice to show what this actually looks like when a community decides that they want to get a message out there to their neighbors. We call it the Newport example. It involves the voucher bill and the idea that Newport schools will be adversely affected by the voucher bill. The Newport town chair decided to take action, and here's an example of their successful visibility.
We're here today to support public funds for public schools, John. As you may be aware, yesterday, the New Hampshire Senate voted in favor, 14-10, SB 130, which is the Senate's version of the voucher bill. And what that means is they are proposing to give public dollars to families for their children's religious school, private school, or homeschooling. And that will really affect our town because that will be money that will be going to them and not to support our public schools. If that money doesn't come to Newport, our taxes are going to go up.
What is the specifics of what is happening with this particular bill?
Well, they actually had two bills. They had HB 20, which was the House version of school vouchers, and that bill was retained. That means no action is going to be taken further on it this year. But the Senate Bill 130, yesterday they not only voted to pass it, but they voted to table it. Is what that does is it sends it to the Senate Finance Committee, who we suspect are going to embed the language of the bill into House Bill 2, which is the policy part of the governor's budget. You can go to the general court and click on New Hampshire Senate, and you can go in and look at the standing committees. It's a real simple process. Our senator is Senator Ruth Ward. Senator Ward is a strong proponent of vouchers. She also, at the beginning, when she won, she was making some remarks about putting a constitutional amendment in so that people could send their children wherever they wanted to go to school and public dollars would pay for it.
Is this something that there are strong proponents of in our district?
No, actually, and it was one of the very big disappointments yesterday, is that there was no time to discuss the public outcry that has been made against vouchers.
Are representatives supporting this in the House?
Well, I know that our Floterial representative, Linda Tanner, who sits on the Education Committee, voted against the HB 20. I do not know where Representative Rollins and Representative Callum stand at this time. Probably the first thing I would want people to do is to contact Senator Ruth Ward. You can email her or you can call Ruth.
So what else would you say about this that people should know?
Well, if they would like to email me, Karen Dewey, at pkdewey@comcast.net, I can get them a great deal of resources that make this whole process easy to understand.
Do you feel that this is something that the town of Newport either supports, doesn't support, or is unaware of?
I think mostly it's unaware, because all of us who are here today, we are not against choice of schools. We all support kids going to school wherever their parents would like them to go. What we are against is public dollars paying for private school, religious schools, or homeschooling. I think you're probably aware that we've already had 2 Supreme Court cases that said that New Hampshire doesn't pay enough for public school. In all 50 states, New Hampshire ranks 50th in its support of public education. In fairness, I think although I voted to support our school staff, you have to understand that in Newport, we only have so many dollars.
Well,
we are
yeah.
what is called a property poor community. So we do the greatest effort, a Herculean effort, of raising funds to support our schools. What the voucher system will do is take away some of that money and make it almost impossible for our tax dollars to support education.
Well, thank you, Karen.
Thank
this
you,
is very
John, for
important.
being here today. And thanks to all these wonderful people for turning out.